This is your daily dose of all things royal. Welcome back, my gorgeous, good-looking friends. Strap yourselves in, folks, because the Archewell Public Charity has just dumped their 2024 990 form, and it is dripping with the hallmarks of a cover-up and erasing political involvement with their radical leftist past. Classic signs they're desperately trying to dodge any real scrutiny under the Trump administration. Now, this is all my opinion, of course. But go ahead and settle in, because this breakdown that I'm about to do is going to be a doozy. This is the channel to watch, as I'm the only one who has been relentlessly exposing Harry and Meghan's grift with this charity. And today, I'm laying bare just how slick and manipulative they're being with this latest release. Now, as I go through this, please keep in mind that Prince Harry and Meghan do act as if they are above the law. So it's not that big of a stretch to think that there's some deception going on with this latest release. So keep that in the back of your mind. Now, if you could, a quick favor for me before we dive in, please hit that like button and double check to make sure that you're still subscribed, because there is going to be a few more videos coming exposing all of this. All right, then. Let's tear this nonsense apart. So today, Harry and Meghan splashed the big news all over the world that on Sussex.com, the Archewell Foundation, or as I like to call it, the Archewell Public Charity, is suddenly rebranded as Archewell Philanthropies. So now, in this rebranding, Archewell Philanthropies is home to the charitable work of Prince Harry and Meghan, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, as they brought in their global philanthropic efforts for meaningful reach and maximum impact. After 5 beautiful years, the Archewell Public Charity is becoming Archewell Philanthropies. This charitable entity allows the couple and their children to expand upon their global philanthropic endeavors as a family. So my interpretation of this now is that their global expansion is really where they're going to be sourcing their money. Now that USAID has been cut off and the slush fund to support their lifestyle is no longer accessible, they're going to be going to the UK. They're going to be going to the UN, the World Health Organization. And we also know that when there is a good natural disaster or crisis here in the United States that involves the blue state, the disaster tourists from Archewell will inevitably show up. Another reason I suspect for this rebranding and change of names, not because it aligns with their global perspectives. No, it's because they finally realized they couldn't keep pretending to be a foundation while clinging to public charity status for all those sweet tax perks. Yeah, I've hammered this point before. Real private foundations don't get the same tax breaks. And public charities are not supposed to be doing political activism as well as not being transparent with the public, which are two things that Meghan and Harry are guilty of. Now, I suspect that this PR spin is really to dodge Uncle Sam from getting too close. I mean, look at this. Slap on a fresh name like Archewell Philanthropies, launch a shiny new site, and conveniently make the old archewell.org vanish into the ether, along with easy access to the Biden years of those 990s and all their bloated Archewell impact propaganda. Maybe they'll bring it back, but today, it's all gone. What you're looking at is now the landing page of the once archewell.org to now archewellphilanthropies.org. It now redirects to this landing page. Perhaps maybe it's under construction, but now you can't pull any of the previous reports or 990s. Now, if anyone is poking around after all the attention and media that has been put out today for an audit or investigation, all they'll see now is this upfront, polished new version with the latest report and the 2024 990. Suddenly, we see this pivot to safe causes like the kids' online safety and empowering women and girls. And not to forget the ambulance chasing that they're now trying to make a part of Archewell Philanthropies. Poof! The past 4 years of questionable antics under the old Biden regime? Magically buried. How convenient. Well, The internet never forgets, and I will ensure, as well as others, to continue to hold their feet to the fire for what they have done and continue to do to America. Let's go ahead and dissect these numbers raw. Now, let me preface before I jump into this analysis, I am not a tax accountant or professional in this field. This is just how I'm reading it and interpreting what I'm seeing. Okay, let's kick off with the noticeable revenue nosedive. Contributions plummeted from $5.3 million the prior year to a measly $2.1 million in 2024, a whopping 60% drop. Their investment income? It ticked up slightly to $450,000, but that's really not that much in the grand scheme of things. Total revenue? It slashed nearly in half to $2.6 million. It appears that not much money is being donated into this foundation. Now, when we're looking at the spending side, Archewell Fugazi Public Charity managed to burn through $5.1 million, almost double their incoming cash. The grants that they paid out held steady at around $1.26 million. I mean, really just about the same as last year. And salaries, they dipped a bit to $913,000. That's like $1 million. But other expenses ballooned to a jaw-dropping almost $3 million from $1 million the year prior. Like, what exactly is the mysterious other category soaking up nearly 60% of their budget? Is it in PR firms, glossy impact reports, Meghan's wardrobe, private jets for crisis response, general image polishing? What? Because for a charity supposedly focused on kids online and empowering women and just showing up to do good as volunteers, that's an awful lot of overhead not going to actual grants. I mean, am I crazy for thinking that? I have some valid theories on what's going on here that I'll share in a second, but let's finish going through this. So now here's where I want you to factor in what I said at the beginning of this video. We know Harry and Meghan are very deceptive and manipulative. The narrative that we're supposed to be reading from this 990, does it look good that there is a negative $2.5 million deficit that's eating away at their so-called savings? The net assets here shrunk from $10.7 million to $8.2 million, down about $2.5 million, which aligns with this loss. Now we're supposed to believe that they are bleeding cash? Yes, they are, but I believe it's for strategic purposes because we know that optics is everything for this couple. And given that myself and quite a few others have been drawing a spotlight onto Archewell for their involvement with various organizations, especially with Afghans, they obviously are trying to deflect any type of connection with the Biden regime. In my opinion, this presentation is to make it look like, oh, Harry and Meghan put their hands in their pockets to give back to the community. Look how generous they are. This is really to make them look like, oh, they're not getting money from elsewhere. It's really their own money. And now the news cycle will be consumed with saying, oh, how Harry and Meghan are bleeding cash. They're struggling for money. All their opportunities are drying up. You know, unfortunately, Harry and Meghan can't be trusted. So is there a possibility that these numbers are cooked? Absolutely. And I think it's to get the heat off of their backs for participating in various programs where taxpayer money was laundered. Now, at the time of this recording, I haven't looked to see what others have been saying about this, but I'm pretty sure many have spotted that glaring negative number under revenue less expenses and have naturally assumed the royal rejects have bungled things so badly that they continue to fail at everything. So the nut of this report is the other expenses that have no clear explanation as to what those other expenses were for. We're going to come back to this number in a second, but now let's go to the program expenses so you can see their priorities. So now of the $5.1 million in expenses, 2.9 million, almost 3 million, went into building a better online world to keep the kids safe, otherwise known as censorship. I think many of you can agree that there is a noticeable shift with Harry and Meghan's Archewell Fugazi public charity last year, quickly pivoting after it was exposed from the Twitter files that there was this censorship complex that was involved with interfering with our elections as well as censoring Americans. So, rightfully so, the increase in money dedicated towards online harms has been across the board with these NGOs to make it look like, oh yeah, they're really there to protect the children. It's still censorship and invasion of privacy and surveillance under the guise of protecting the kids. You'll notice all the Democrats now have all these bills, I think like 18 of them, to push through on age verification, as well as like platforms being responsible for content moderation and the fight for controlling those algorithms and what information gets pushed out to your kids to see. That's real. There is a battle going on right now with the left and the right. And don't think that that 3 million is coming out of Harry and Meghan's own pocket. We're going to get there. Just stay with me. Now, the next scam that Archewell's pulling off here is the so-called uplifting communities, where $1.2 million was spent in program expenses, of which half of it, $637,474, went into grants given, and wait for it, folks, resettling Afghan refugees. More of these unvetted Afghan refugees. And then you have $267,194 going towards supporting integrity in journalism, in restoring trust in information, otherwise known as funding more propaganda machines that are used to influence the public. Now, the last one for other program services listed as expenses of $120,755. And it says describe on Schedule O what that is, because there's no explanation here what this money is for. So they must have explained it in Schedule O, right? Wrong. Here's what they put. This doesn't tell us anything, so I would consider this a red flag for the IRS. So now that we see what they spent their money on, let's take a look at the breakdown as to where that money went. Now, there's a lot of red flags here on these expenses. I mean, you mean to tell me Harry and Meghan went to Nigeria and Colombia last year and all they spent was $116,000 alone for travel. Nobody is buying that amount, considering we know Harry and Meghan love to fly private, and on these trips to Nigeria and Colombia, they brought their whole entourage, which included people from Archewell as well as Misan Harriman. So where did they stay, and what did they eat? Obviously, there's a cost to that. Was this information included in the other category, where $2.2 million was spent on nobody knows what? In addition to Archewell paying the 3 employees that they have over $500,000, they also paid to 6 contractors approximately $1.2 million. Of these 6 contractors that I am aware of in looking at this list, 2 of them are political advocates. You have Invisible Hand as well as Jory Craig. Now, before we go ahead and talk about those 2, let's just take a moment and recognize that Dinner Party Labs is also another nonprofit. But in this role with Archewell, they are making profit by offering their services to foster meaningful conversations for things like the Parents Network, as well as the insight sessions that Jory Craig, I guess put together in order to put out that bullshit report on convincing people on why we need more regulation. You see how they're all working hand in hand? We all know how disgusting this Jory Craig is and the role that she played with the Democrats and the censorship complex, but even more disgusting is this woman, Genevieve Roth, who is the CEO of Invisible Hand. Her role is a bit more dangerous within Archewell, in my opinion. According to her bio, Genevieve Roth is the senior strategic advisor to Archewell. She has done in the past campaigns for the Obama Foundation, and she was the director of the creative engagement for the 2016 Hillary Clinton presidential campaign. But the real danger here is her expertise on narrative change, women's empowerment, and social justice, and has worked to convene thought leaders on the topic in partnership with the White House and Let Girls Learn. the United Nations Goals Project. So she is fully on board and in alignment with Agenda 2030 and driving Archewell to push this evil socialist agenda that is wrecking the West. And the biggest contractor that they have here is MNC Saatchi Group, which looks like it was hired to establish Archewell's brand, considering it was decimated after their primary focus of tackling mis and disinformation and really being a part of the censorship complex had been exposed. When you get to the meat and potatoes of these grants, you realize you start to see that the majority of them belong to this refugee program during the Biden regime of resettling these unvetted migrants that are now posing a danger to the United States. So now the big ticket items that Archewell chose to give money to last year were dedicated towards tech and rebuilding the online space. So they gave $150,000 to Screen Sanity that helps guide parents on being safe online. Then we had the NAACP Digital Civil Rights Award, which we know what's going on there. And then we have Hope Lab, which is an organization that's heavily focused in lobbying and tech reform. What's blatantly missing from Archewell's impact report, as well as any sort of follow-up in this 990, is this $250,000 that they gave to Ashley Biden. So now I want to go back for a second and talk about the majority and bulk of these grants. For the most part, the grants that Meghan and Harry gave out went to resettling Afghans and refugees. I find it absolutely unbelievable that Harry and Meghan put their hands in their pockets to fund all of these organizations out of the kindness of their hearts so these Afghans and refugees were settled in and welcomed with open arms here in the United States. I find that very hard to believe, especially when each of these organizations got a specific dollar amount, which was $27,500. I'm sorry, I just can't wrap my brain around Harry and Meghan being negative $2.1 million in the hole and promoting this all over the world, right? Because there has been a press release announcing that Archewell had released its 990 and now they've repositioned and blah, blah, blah. No, I can't believe that they are negative $2.1 million and proud of that. I believe, and this is my theory of what went on based off of seeing all of these organizations tied to Welcome US, that this is being done to divert our attention from looking in this direction and trying to find where the money trail is. Harry and Meghan have many shell companies that are set up. Okay, so let's talk about these shell companies and how they would fit into concealing money coming from the U.S. government. And this is a purely hypothetical situation using a real-world example of what the Biden administration was doing. With Operations Allies Welcome coordinating across DHS and State Department channels, Anthony Blinken greenlights a concealed funding pipeline to leverage these NGOs. And in this case, with Harry and Meghan, you have this soft diplomacy ensuring Afghan women and families receive community support while bolstering U.S. humanitarian image abroad. Direct ties to the Archewell Fugazi Public Charity are avoided to sidestep IRS scrutiny on nonprofit filings. And why not confuse it even more by changing the name to Archewell Philanthropy? So now if the IRS is looking up Archewell Foundation and looking for any type of history on it, clearly they're not going to find it now because it's gone. Sure, the 990 still exists, but those impact reports showing the various organizations that they had been partnered with are no longer available as of today. The only report that you can access is this impact report as well as the 990. I'm assuming that they will put back up the various reports because I think they spent a lot of money on putting together that BS. Now, if I had to guess, I think money had been flowing into these shell companies that might be sitting offshore. Even though registered in Delaware, they could very well be sitting offshore. And that's how they have been accumulating their wealth. And then from there, now with money in hand, you see a backdoor infusion into Archewell where whoever's representing or managing the shell company then makes an anonymous contribution to Archewell through a donor-advised fund, otherwise known as a DAF, at a major foundation, like Silicon Valley Community Foundation, or Fidelity. These appear on Archewell's Form 990 as generic. So in 2024, it shows that someone made a donation of $2 million. Chances are that's coming from Harry and Meghan. It's really amazing how marketing can really transform the image or brand of an organization that is really nothing but smoke and mirrors pushing the globalist agenda. In part 2, I'm going to rip this report apart and show you that it's all smoke and mirrors. At this point, I don't trust the numbers that we are seeing. The only way that we can get to a source of truth is if the IRS goes in and audits them. We need to see bank statements. We need to see funds transferring in and out of the account, not what they put on this paper for the public. We need to see the bank statements, especially if there is suspicion that taxpayer money has been laundered. And I suspect that this is the case, especially when the majority of your grants are going towards a program where billions had been allocated and you're seeing the same denomination being represented of 27,500 all the way down for these organizations. You know what I mean? So yeah, it is suspicious. And I think the IRS really needs to get on it to investigate. Now, the last thing that I want to leave you here with is saying that the IRS is not concerned with whether a nonprofit is profitable. It really is only concerned with whether the organization is operating from an exempt purpose and whether charitable funds are being used properly, which I suspect that they're not. Anyhow, let me wrap up. I was doing some reading on the IRS website, and the fastest way to trigger IRS action is something called private inurement. And what that is, it occurs when charity funds directly or indirectly enrich insiders such as founders, officers, board members, or their families. This can take the form of excessive salaries, consulting contracts awarded to insiders like a Jory Craig, or an invisible hand, or a Beth Hurley, because she is an insider, or the payment of personal expenses under the guise of charitable activities, so like Meghan charging her whole wardrobe to it, or using Archewell as their backdrop to improve their so-called brand, not really impacting anything, but just for self-serving. You could probably make a case for that, especially if it's tied to furthering for-profit opportunities, like with Netflix or with other media outlets. But that's kind of where we're at right now. We got to continue to keep making noise. We cannot let them get off the hook for their involvement these past 4 years and the damage that they caused here in the United States. I'm not going to allow it. I don't expect you guys either. So please share this video, like it. Be back tomorrow because part 2 will be going through and ripping to shreds that impact report that is full of BS. In any case, I will be back with more content, but until then, please be safe and I'll talk to you later. Bye!
Such a fraud.